What are you solving for? That's a huge question. I want to talk about this today. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's August 9th, 2020. This is Krimdelko. Since the last update on July 30th, the fund is down 0.5%. Today's a Sunday, so I'm referring to last Friday. So we're for the year now up 122.7%. The S&P since the last update is up 3.3%. So for the year, the S&P is now up 3.7%. So we're outperforming by 119%. So if we put $100 in our fund and $100 in the S&P on January 1st, we would have $222.7 and the S&P would have $103.7. This is what this outperformance actually means in terms of dollars. Main contributors to our outperformance were Tesla and the CRISPR Biotech Index. Microsoft did also well. We lost money on RTX and Intel. Let's jump right into it. What are you solving for? This is a Silicon Valley question, and we've been living in Silicon Valley now for about 6 years, and there's a lot of things you can learn, a lot of things you shouldn't learn from here. One of the biggest positives of Silicon Valley is it's a very purpose-driven society. Purpose-driven in the sense that everybody has a purpose, everybody thinks they have a purpose. Some maybe might not have it actually, but at least the narrative is such. It's not like that on the East Coast. It's not like that in Europe. It's not like that in Asia. So I think that is one of the biggest advantages of the Silicon Valley culture. And I just came from a trip to Utah and Idaho and places like that. And culture is really, really important. Utah is a very gritty culture, a culture of people who built something out of nothing in the Salt Lake. Idaho is more of a culture of people that are very conservative because they're exposed to extreme nature. And Nevada, again, is more like Utah. California has its own cultures. LA is different than San Diego and definitely different than San Francisco. San Francisco is a purpose-driven culture, and this is the one thing that I've learned here that is unbelievably important. The question of what are you solving for? So what does that mean for Orange Capital Partners? What are we solving for? Well, it's actually very simple. We've thought about this a lot, and the answer is we solve for generating wealth. The purpose of Orange Capital Partners is to generate wealth by investing in disruptive technologies with large impact. This is as simple as it gets. And of course, now we have to unpack that. And the reason it's good to have a purpose and a clarity of what you do is that you can then unpack it and then see what the steps are you need to take to actually achieve that goal. One more analogy I love is the analogy from martial arts. And there's this saying, in particular in MMA, that when the cage door closes, life gets very simple. And that's a beautiful saying, because when the cage door closes, all you have to do is win that fight. That's it. It's not very complicated. Your purpose is to win that fight. And I think we in Silicon Valley here, we often, our cage door actually closes and we are in that fight. A lot of entrepreneurs, startups really fight a martial art type, unbelievably hard fight. Us on the investment side also, I think Orange Capital Partners, I often say that I feel like I'm an MMA fighter in finance, in a sense that I have to use all the tools available and fight unbelievable animosity. And most importantly, a very, very complex system. The animosity, by the way, doesn't necessarily come from people. Sometimes it comes from people, but it comes from the complexity of things. What should I do with interest rates? What should I do with earnings calls? Is this company really competitive enough? What if the CEO goes crazy? What if they lose market share? What if some competitor actually is as good as they say they are? I don't know. So to have clarity, to have the cage door close and be very, very clear and life become very simple is a big luxury. So what having an answer to the question, what is it you're solving for, is kind of another way of saying, look, let the cage door close and let's focus on the tools we need to have to win that fight. And the fight in our case is generate wealth. Generate wealth. What is wealth? Wealth defined by various dictionaries, Google and Webster and whatnot. I think there's lots of definitions, but let's boil it down to it's an abundance of resources. That's what wealth is. So we are in the business of generating an abundance of resources. Let me clarify one thing here that's very important. We're not in the business of making money. What's the difference between generating wealth and making money? There's a lot of people on Wall Street that are in the business of making money, and that's good for them. You know, the guys that buy low, sell high, inside information, some illegal, some legal, doesn't matter. They all are in the business of making money, scalping, making a little bit here, making a little bit there. That's making money. Generating wealth is different because generating wealth is first and foremost it has to be sustainable, and so otherwise it's not. You can't have an abundance of resources if those resources disappear. So if you're wrong on one trade and you lose half of your money, that's making money and then losing it and making it, but it's not generating wealth. Has to be something more like a sustainable, like an avalanche, like something that keeps growing and keeps growing. The innovation stack, for example, is the base of generating wealth. Disruptive technologies. Why are we investing in disruptive technologies? Because they are the base for generating wealth. Why do we care about large impact? Because how else can we generate wealth if there's no large impact? If you have a fantastic technology in a tiny market that doesn't impact anybody, well, good for you. It doesn't really make a big difference, and it's not going to help us investors generate wealth. That's why we look for large impact. And it becomes much clearer when you look at it that way, because then you can say no to many things, because you see, look, this is too complicated, this is too competitive, you're not going to be, this is not disruptive, it's not going to, it might make money, but it's not going to generate wealth. So those are the kinds of answers then you all of a sudden find very easy once you go through life with this clear purpose of how do I generate wealth. On the other hand, when you find something like Tesla, for example, then you can start digging deeper and say, okay, look, this seems like a place that will generate wealth because their purpose is a much, much bigger picture than even ours. When we say we want to generate wealth, we talk, let's say, let's put some numbers out there. Let's say $20 million, I would consider a decent amount of wealth. We are not in the business of flying to Mars, changing the world's transportation, energy infrastructure. So if they achieve that, if Tesla achieves that, then we will be able to achieve our own goals. And I also want to clarify, when I say generate wealth, you see, wealth is obviously a relative thing. For some people, wealth means they want to change the world. In a sense, they want people to fly to Mars, like Elon Musk. Or Jeff Bezos wants to change Hollywood. He has the ability to change retail. He needs billions, trillions of dollars to do that. For us, that's not the case. We don't have those kinds of ambitions. Our ambitions are in the range of, first and foremost, having enough resources to live our lives the way we think we should be living our lives. So, and that's very important. That means you want to have resources to support yourself and your family. I personally want to have resources to support my parents and make sure that their lives in their old age are as good as they can be. I also want to invest resources in things where I think I can make life better for others when it fits my bigger view of life. For example, I want social justice in a very narrow sense, not in the political sense that is now going all over social media, but more in the narrow sense. I want, for example, my neighbors or even my closer friends and relatives to have a certain amount of ability to create chances for themselves to reach that same stage that I was lucky to reach, which is having even a shot at generating wealth. So I'm happy to invest money in there. I'm also very happy to help with global warming. This is one of the topics that we at Orange Capital have identified as the big impact that we're looking for. And let me caveat that a little bit. I just want to make sure when we say that we are investing in money to generate wealth, with large to have large impact, we don't necessarily mean that we want to fight global warming. That's why we kept it general. But global warming happens to be the one thing which is very worth pursuing. It's unbelievably large in terms of, if you fail, it's gonna have huge impact, and if you can prevent it, you're gonna have a huge impact by definition, and therefore you should be able to generate wealth through that. So, but it's not the end goal. It happens to be something that is right now in our generation the thing to work for. I think global warming is a much, much bigger problem than things like COVID or pandemics. Global warming is a nonlinear problem. So we can't wait. We have to solve it as soon as we can because we don't know what the non-linearity of melting ice and so on and so forth is. So getting back to the question, what are you solving for? So we're solving for generating wealth for ourselves and our investors by investing in disruptive technologies that can actually have an impact on global warming. This is the main key. It's not the only thing. Our CRISPR technologies, for example, are involved in other problems, not necessarily global warming related, but we still believe that global warming is the big overarching impact that we're trying to mitigate with Orange Capital Partners. There are other things that we're working on. For example, quantum computing is a big disruptive technology that we believe will have a massive impact on everything, not just global warming. It's not investable right now as the way we could see it, and that's a whole other episode. So, but I just want to put that out as another idea and also give a little bit of perspective in how we think about these large impacts that go back to the purpose of generating wealth. I think quantum computing is exactly a field that will generate a lot of wealth. It's just not at that stage of maturity yet. And that's another episode again. When does an interesting technology become investable and start generating wealth? That's a very interesting question for a whole other episode. So to summarize, Orange Capital Partners is in the business of generating wealth by investing in disruptive technologies with large impact. So that is what Orange Capital Partners is solving for. We're not in the business of making money because making money is not the equivalent of having an abundance of resources. When we say abundance of resources, we're not talking about trillions of dollars here. I think wealth is a relative thing. There is definitely a lower threshold under which you can say that's not wealth anymore. Like I said, something like $20 million for us at this stage with the dollar where it is right now is definitely worth pursuing in terms of wealth generation. And then more is better, but I also think there is a marginal utility which is declining. So between 20 and 200, things change. Unless you can change your own perspectives of life and say, I have other purposes that I want to pursue, I think it becomes less and less useful to generate wealth. Okay, that's maybe another episode also on its own. But at this point where we are right now, also we're working for other people, so we are definitely not in any kind of way maxed out in terms of generating wealth. Don't get me wrong. I just want to say that it's not something that you want to pursue linearly as an individual, because generating wealth, I think at some point really starts becoming like, well, why do I need this additional dollar for what? I'm not gonna spend another, make a useless wedding or something like that. And if I don't have a real purpose to say, my son can only go to a good school, one good school. He can't go to three good schools. I mean, where does that stop? And by the way, maybe it's not even good for me to pay for his schooling. Maybe he should learn how to pay for his own stuff. So there's a lot of questions like that. But again, I think generating wealth has, at this stage where we are right now, still a lot of purpose and a lot of air up left to fill. And we're very happy about that. So we're solving for generating wealth by investing in disruptive technologies with large impact. And we're doing that particularly by fighting global warming. Thanks.